Accidentally, he swiped across the screen and mistakenly opened the contacts list. Shin Owen. How could Yen Luna have his contact information? Liang Henry dialed his assistant's number again. Check if Shin Owen and Luna have had any contact. In my memory they never had any interaction, but Liang Henry had seen Shin Owen at the wedding. At that time he was also very strange. They had no connection with Shin Owen, so why would he come even with a generous gift? Soon the assistant replied, Madam and Mr. Bai once appeared at the same bar. Mr. Bai followed Madam when she left, and then they had a brief exchange at another club. Finally Mr. Bai sent Madam to the hotel. Hotel? Liang Henry interrupted. But the hotel surveillance showed that Mr. Bai left 5 minutes later, and the next day his wife left the hotel alone. The two have had no contact since. Liang Henry held his phone tightly. He believed Yen Luna, but this Shin Owen was definitely not simple. He couldn't wait a moment longer and drove to Shin's. However, he was informed by the front desk staff that Shin Owen, as the highest level executive, had approved a 3-month leave for himself a few days ago. Why is your CO Shin on leave? I heard it's because he's avoiding being pressured to marry. Pressured to marry? Hearing this answer, Liang Henry felt slightly relieved. In their circle, almost no one can escape being arranged into a marriage. It's rare to see an arranged marriage like his and Yen Luna's, where they're also childhood sweethearts. Since Shin Owen's family has arranged a marriage partner for him, his worries are probably unnecessary. Liang Henry restarted the car but suddenly remembered something. He called his assistant again. What was Luna and Shin Owen's first meeting? Where was it? It was on the day you held the welcome banquet for Miss Xiao. Instantly Henry Liang felt a chill run through his entire body. No wonder Luna Yen left without saying goodbye that day. She must have heard what he said in the hallway. Henry Liang returned home dejectedly and found a note left by Zhou Ma on the table. Zhou Ma actually quit her job and went back to her hometown. In her letter she said, Madam is a wonderful person but you don't take care of yourself. Since the person who truly loves my cooking is no longer here, I must leave too. Alone in the huge villa, Liang Henry's heart also felt empty. He opened the refrigerator and it was empty. Finally he found a plate of frozen dumplings on the bottom shelf. The moment he opened the lid, Henry Liang's nose tingled. This unskilled craftsmanship was obviously Luna Yan's work. She must have made them for herself during the days when Zhou Ma was away. The dumpling wrappers were crooked and uneven, some even exposing the filling. But Liang Henry treasured them and carefully boiled them. He swallowed the dumplings bite by bite, tears streaming down his face without him realizing it. On Liang Henry's 18th birthday coming-of-age ceremony, after the grand banquet, Yen Luna mysteriously pulled him into the kitchen. She brought out the bowl of dumplings she had made for the first time. He joked, Shouldn't you eat longevity noodles on your birthday? She pretended to take it away. I only learned this if you don't eat it. Liang Henry swallowed the last dumpling and murmured, Yen Luna, your cooking skills haven't improved at all. But he finished it with satisfaction just like he did on his 18th birthday. In the evening he lay in the master bedroom bed after a long absence. During this time he was either staying out all night or arguing with Yen Luna, and he couldn't remember the last time they slept in the same bed. He wrapped himself tightly in the quilt, greedily absorbing the scent left by Yen Luna, but loneliness still invaded him. The next morning, Liang Henry was all packed and ready to go see Yen Luna in person. But the door suddenly opened and Xiao Meizi appeared. What are you doing here? You've been fired. Now besides a divorce I have nothing to discuss with you. Xiao Meizi's expression changed slightly, but she didn't speak until Liang's mother walked in from behind her. She is my Liang family's rightful daughter-in-law, why can't she be here? Mother Liang pulled Meizi Xiao to sit on the sofa. Not only can she come but she will also be living here. Henry Liang didn't expect Meizi Xiao to find Mother Liang as a backer. Mom, I was confused for a moment, please don't join in the mess. I can't even find Luna now. It's good that you can't find her, Mother Liang said sternly. What good is Yen Luna besides being obedient? She can't even have a child. How much effort did I put in for that belly of hers? And in the end it still wasn't up to par. Liang Henry remembered Yen Luna kneeling and bowing on the mountain steps that year, and felt a pang of heartache. What effort did you put in? Luna climbed the mountain herself and she swallowed the tonics without a word. You're the one who made her suffer. You. Mother Liang was furious and Xiao Meizi quickly patted her back to soothe her. Mom, don't be angry with Aching. Hearing this, Mom, Liang Henry felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He abruptly grabbed Xiao Meizi and dragged her out. Even if you don't sign, I have plenty of ways to divorce you. Xiao Meizi cried loudly and Liang's mother scolded him. Stop it. She's pregnant. Liang Henry could hardly believe his ears. He's always been very careful. Except for that dinner when he felt she was wronged, and then he looked at Meizi Zhao's lower abdomen and immediately lost his strength. Mother Liang couldn't wait to start making arrangements. Before long, all of Meizi Zhao's luggage was moved in and placed in the appropriate positions. Finally, a huge wedding photo was carried in. Liang Henry suddenly felt a sense of disorientation. It was taken last year for Xiao Meizi's birthday, after coaxing him to go. At that time she said, I will hide it well and never let Yan Luna see it. Now it hangs openly in his and Yan Luna's marital room. And he himself is the instigator of all this. The sound of waves gently lapping against the hull was like a soft lullaby, but Yan Luna was wide awake. 2 days ago she was tossing and turning on that $1 million custom mattress. But now in this rocking cabin she felt a strange sense of peace. Yan Luna tiptoed up. The deck was empty and the salty, humid sea breeze rushed towards her face. Yan Luna took a deep breath. It was the taste of freedom. The sea appeared ink blue under the moonlight, stretching infinitely into the distance. Yan Luna suddenly remembered that 3 years ago when she and Liang Henry were on their honeymoon in the Maldives, they had also watched the sea side by side on such a night. At that time she thought she had found the only certain happiness in her life. But little did she know it was just a mirage. Can't sleep. Luna Yen was slightly startled, turning to see Owen Yangshin leaning against the cabin door. In the moonlight his tall silhouette appeared particularly clear. Then let's wait for the sunrise together. Shin Owenyang approached and handed her a cup. Be careful, it's hot. Yan Luna took the cup and the warmth immediately transferred to her fingertips. Shin Owenyang stood next to her, maintaining just the right distance, close enough to show friendliness, yet far enough not to make her feel pressured. Yan Luna took a small sip of the hot chocolate. Why are you helping me? This question had been swirling in Luna Yan's mind for a long time, and now it finally came out. Owen Shin smiled and said, it was no trouble at all, and I also wanted to get away from things for a while. Luna Yan asked curiously, are you avoiding someone too? He paused for a moment and answered truthfully, avoiding marriage proposals. Before Yan Luna could speak again he took the initiative to tell a story. Actually, I had a fiancé when I was 6 years old, but only a year later my parents divorced and I left North City with my mother. That marriage eventually fell through. What happened then? Did you look for her after you returned to North City? Shin Owen nodded. Of course, the day I found her she was getting married. Luna Yen paused awkwardly. It's okay, maybe your destiny just hasn't arrived yet. Owen Shin suddenly looked at her seriously. Some destinies need to be created by oneself. Luna Yen didn't understand, but he had already turned back to look at the sea. Because I can see that she is not happy. For a moment Luna Yen thought of herself. The marriage she once trusted completely ended up riddled with holes. She suddenly felt a sense of melancholy. Marriage, is it a shield for love or a shackle? The sea breeze blew for a long time before she heard Owen Shin's reply. If it's a lock because it's making you unhappy, then you have to break it. The eastern horizon began to turn white, and a touch of pale pink appeared where the sea met the sky. Yen Luna unconsciously held her breath, watching the pink gradually turn into orange-red, and then be rendered into dazzling golden yellow as the sun slowly peeked out from the sea. Look over there. Shin Owenyang suddenly pointed to the front right. Yen Luna followed his finger, and in the faint morning light, the outline of an island gradually became clear. It floated on the azure sea, its peak shrouded in mist like a fairyland. That's Dawn Island? Yen Luna leaned forward unconsciously, as if doing so would allow her to see more clearly. Shin Owenyang nodded with a smile. The sunlight grew stronger, gilding the island with a golden edge. Luna Yen squinted, seeing the lush vegetation and the faintly visible white beaches of the island. A flock of seagulls swept over the boat, chirping cheerfully as if welcoming their arrival. It's beautiful, isn't it? Owen Shin's voice was filled with undisguised pride. I'll take you around when we dock later. The water there is so clear you can see sea turtles 10 meters down. Luna Yen suddenly felt her eyes welling up. How long has it been since she last calmed down to appreciate such simple and pure beauty? In the past 3 years her life has been filled with various banquets, charity events and social engagements, and Liang Henry's figure has become increasingly blurred, eventually replaced by Xiao Meizi. What are you thinking about? Shin Owenyang asked, his eyes gentle and concerned. Yen Luna shook her head, shaking off those painful memories. Just thinking, this place is too different from the city. Shin Owenyang chuckled. After you've lived here for a few days with no cell service and being woken up by seagulls every morning, you might miss the convenience of the city. No, I won't. Yen Luna's answer was firm, surprising even herself. On the contrary, I'm really looking forward to this kind of life. Yen Luna disembarked the ship full of anticipation, feeling as if something heavy had been lifted from her shoulders. Here no one knows that she was once Mrs. Liang, and no one will look at her with pity or mockery. Here she can just be Yen Luna. But as they went ashore, Yen Luna gradually found the place somewhat familiar. It turned out to be the island that Liang Henry and Xiao Meizi had visited before. She stopped abruptly. Is it okay to land here freely? Shin Owen saw her concern. It used to be a tourist area open to the public, but now it's a private island. It belongs to only one person, and that person has the right to choose who comes to the island, and even to drive away those who are uninvited. Yen Luna naturally assumed this was Shin Owen and immediately relaxed. Then this is indeed a good place to relax. Shin Owen smiled and unconsciously muttered, it's also a good place to cultivate feelings. Yen Luna didn't hear clearly. What? Cultivate what? Shin Owen immediately became nervous and pointed to the shore not far away, saying, pearls. I said this is also a good place to cultivate pearls. Yen Luna followed his finger and saw that in addition to the two of them, there were many indigenous people on the island, and they all seemed to recognize Shin Owen. Greetings and inquiries were constant along the way. Arriving at the residence, Yen Luna was surprised to find that the interior decoration style was very similar to the old house back home. Since her father passed away, she hadn't been back for a long time and missed it dearly. So upon entering this place, she didn't feel like a stranger. On her first night, she slept soundly and sufficiently. The signal on the island was intermittent, allowing Yen Luna to escape from electronic devices. Every day she ate well, slept soundly, read books and strolled along the beach. In the evening she would take out a bicycle and cycle around the island until the sun went down and the whole world entered the blue hour. It was the ultimate in tranquility and peace. Yen Luna just smiled slightly. So you really came back to your hometown? Could it be that I misunderstood this? It's no misunderstanding. Zhou Ma interrupted her. I was indeed sent to the Xiao family. As she spoke, she rolled up her sleeves. Yen Luna gasped, grabbing Zhou Ma's wrist. What happened here? Beneath the cuffs were large, shocking patches of bluish-purple bruises. Mama Zhou sighed, a look of pain on her face. It's still that Miss Xiao. The master transferred me to her place to cook, but she said I was a country bumpkin and disliked my cooking as too unsophisticated. Once she splashed hot soup on me, and when I dodged she pushed me. Yen Luna felt a wave of dizziness, her chest filled with anger and guilt. She carefully rolled up Mama Zhou's sleeve, revealing more scars in the sunlight, including burns, scratches and obvious pinch marks. Does Liang Henry know? Yen Luna squeezed out the question through gritted teeth. Zhou Ma shook her head. Miss Xiao puts on a good act in front of him. She suddenly grasped Yen Luna's hand tightly. Madam, you must not be soft-hearted and go back. That Xiao woman is no good and the master isn't worth it either. These words were like a dull knife, slowly and deeply piercing Yen Luna's heart. She remembered the scene she saw in the surveillance video that day, Liang Henry's hand on Xiao Meizi's waist, and his cold eyes when he blamed her for pushing Xiao Meizi. I won't, Zhou Ma. Yen Luna heard her own voice unusually calm. That home, that person have nothing to do with me anymore. Owen Shin cleared his throat and said with forced ease, Aunt Zhou, since you and Luna are so destined, why don't you stop harvesting pearls and go back to your old job of cooking for her? I'll benefit from her too. Mama Zhou was stunned for a moment, then laughed, her face full of wrinkles. Okay. That's great. The three of them walked back along the beach, the sunlight stretching their shadows long and intertwined. At this moment, Yan Luna suddenly understood that some departures do not bring an end, but a new beginning. Like a pearl, originally just a painful grain of sand in a shell, eventually wrapped by time and the gentleness of the sea into a treasure. At dinner, Yan Luna and Shin Owen sat facing each other, while Zhou Ma was still busy with the last dish. Yan Luna suddenly said, "Why are you so hung up on a 6-year-old girl? You shouldn't have any feelings for her." Shin Owen was stunned, using as light a tone as possible. "Because she saved me. Back then my father's mistress deliberately left me in the forest, and she appeared when I was lost." Before he could finish, Yan Luna suddenly continued. "She didn't happen to take apart the sweater she was wearing and use it as a marker along the way, find you, and then lead you back the way you came, did she?" Shin Owen was surprised for a moment, then laughed. "So you remember," he said, nodding as if suddenly realizing something. "After all, I already had such a handsome face back then." Yan Luna ignored his joke and looked towards Zhou Ma, who was busy in the kitchen. "Then Zhou Ma is the mole you planted by my side?" Shin Owen immediately became nervous, his tone serious. "I swear I have never inquired about any information from Aunt Zhou, and in fact since I sent her to North City 3 years ago, today is the first time I've seen her again. Her son is sick and she needs an opportunity to earn money for medicine. I pointed her in a direction, that's all. Please don't be angry, I just wanted to find someone to take care of you." A smack sound. Yan Luna put down her chopsticks. Shin Owen was startled and immediately sat up straight. Yan Luna simply picked up her empty bowl and called out, "Aunt Zhou, another bowl please," and couldn't help but chuckle at his alarmed appearance. After dinner, Owen, Shin and Luna Yen took a walk along the coastline. "Thank you," Luna Yen said first. "Aunt Zhou has taken care of me a lot these past few years." She remembered Aunt Zhou's ginger soup when she was caught in the rain, her hugs when she was sad, and her waiting up all night when she came home late. Owen Shin smiled. "You should say that to Aunt Zhou, I didn't do anything. He just happened to be there for her when she wanted to leave." Yan Luna changed the subject. "By the way, which family is the marriage partner your family arranged for you from? Maybe I know them." Shin Owen touched his nose, his voice a little vague. "No, it's not arranged yet." Yan Luna was puzzled. "Then isn't your worry a bit premature?" But Shin Owen urged her to go back. "It's going to rain, let's go back." Before long, thunder and rain fell together. The same rain also fell on North City. Liang Henry had been locked in the study for 2 days. His eyes were dark and his chin was covered in stubble, his eyes a chaotic mess. Through the door, Liang's mother asked for the umpteenth time, "Have you thought it through? As long as you're willing to have the wedding with Maisie, I'll let you out immediately. Maisie is already pregnant. Now that things have come to this, you have to take responsibility for the consequences you've sown. My Liang family's child will never be allowed to wander outside with an illegitimate status." Inside the door, Liang Henry repeatedly stroked Yan Luna's last photo, then suddenly stood up. He replied in a hoarse voice, "I agree." A triumphant smile flashed across Liang's mother's face, which she quickly replaced with a stern expression. "You should have done this sooner. Start preparing for the wedding tomorrow. I've already taken care of the media." The door closed again and Liang Henry slumped into the chair as if all the bones in his body had been removed. In the days that followed, Liang Henry was manipulated like a puppet, completing all the procedures. During the interview he didn't say a word from beginning to end. When taking wedding photos the photographer had to repeatedly remind him, "Groom, please smile." In the jewelry store while Xiao Maisie excitedly tried on various diamond rings, he stared blankly at the mark left by his previous wedding ring on his ring finger. A week before the wedding, Xiao Maisie's delicate voice came from the fitting room. "Ah Ching, I'll come out and show you right away. It will definitely amaze you." Liang Henry closed his eyes. He remembered that Yan Luna never spoke like that. She always smiled quietly, her eyes curved like crescent moons. The phone suddenly vibrated and his assistant's excited voice came through. "Mr. Liang. We have news about Madam." Henry Liang's heart clenched. "Are you sure?" His voice trembled, almost out of tune. Absolutely. I have photos here, they're blurry but it's definitely Madam. Liang Henry had already strode towards the door. Aching. Xiao Maisie pulled back the curtain, appearing in the light wearing a gorgeous wedding dress, but only heard the sound of the fitting room door slamming shut. Liang Henry rushed into the car. The car entered the traffic flow, and Liang Henry looked at the rapidly receding street scene outside the window with a frighteningly bright gaze. The phone vibrated madly, the screen displaying Mother, Xiao Maisie. He simply turned it off. Luna, wait for me. This thought grew wildly in his heart, like a vine in the darkness finally seeing the sunlight. No matter what he has to face, no matter what price he has to pay, this time he must find her and cherish her. The assistant continued, Mr. Liang, Morningstar Island is now a private island. You can't land there without permission. Then force your way in. Liang Henry roared in a low voice. I don't care what method you use, I must see a boat ready to go to sea at the dock within an hour. After hanging up the phone, Liang Henry realized that his back was already soaked with sweat. However, before he could relax, he noticed in the rearview mirror that 3 black cars had followed him at some point, but he recognized them as his own cars at a glance. Liang Henry irritably yanked open his tie and stepped on the gas. However, before long, 3 cars surrounded him and Liang Henry, suddenly distracted, crashed into the guardrail. Due to the inertia, his forehead slammed forward, and a sharp pain accompanied by warm liquid flowed down. He reached out and touched it, his hand covered in bright red. His gaze passed through the windshield and he saw all the car doors open and several men in black get out. Maisie Xiao followed behind, still wearing her wedding dress. Ching. Don't go. Just when he was in despair, a taxi with its available light on appeared at the street corner. Henry Liang rushed over with all his might, yanked open the car door and jumped inside. The taxi started, leaving the pursuers behind. Afterward, Maisie Xiao cried out and fell in the middle of the road. Henry Liang turned his face away, wishing he could instantly teleport to the pier. He just wanted to see Luna Yen immediately and bring her back. We're here. The driver stopped the car at the entrance and pointed to the meter. Henry Liang felt his empty pockets and realized that he had left his wallet at the bridal shop. He lowered his head, unhesitatingly took off his wedding ring with Maisie Xiao, and handed it to the driver without looking, ready to get out of the car. This is enough to pay for 100 trips. The driver widened his eyes. Sir, this is too valuable. Keep it. Henry Liang pushed the door open and got out of the car, the sea breeze immediately enveloping him with a salty, fishy smell. It has no meaning to me anymore. In the distance, a white speedboat was quietly moored, and the assistant was anxiously looking around. When he saw Henry Liang's face covered in blood, he was so shocked that he almost fell into the sea. Mr. Liang. Your injury. If you're ready, let's go. Henry Liang stepped directly onto the speedboat, his movements swaying slightly due to blood loss. I found the fastest one as you requested, but... The assistant handed over a clean handkerchief. The weather station says there will be strong winds in 2 hours. It's too dangerous to go out to sea now. Henry Liang looked towards the horizon, where several dark clouds had already gathered. I'll go myself. He said simply, taking the keys and getting into the driver's seat. At least let me go with you. The assistant grabbed the gunwale. Henry Liang shook his head. You stay and deal with my mother. He started the engine, the roar drowning out other sounds. The speedboat cut through the calm sea, like a sharp blade piercing into the distance. Henry Liang didn't look back, so he didn't see the men in black who rushed to the end of the pier, nor did he see Maisie Xiao slumped in the car, her wedding dress covered in dust and blood, looking disheveled. All he could see was the increasingly close horizon, and he seemed to be able to see Luna Yan's figure. Luna, this time it's my turn to find you. Liang Henry pushed the throttle to the maximum and the speedboat almost took off. No matter how many storms he has to cross, no matter how many obstacles he has to face, this time he will never let go again. However, as the speedboat approached, the people on the shore became clearer and clearer. That tall figure was clearly a man. Liang Henry's heart suddenly tightened. Shin Owen. Why are you here? Owen Shin smiled. I should be asking you that, this is my island. The hostility in Henry Liang's eyes deepened. A chance encounter at a bar, a number in his contacts, his island? It can't all be a coincidence. Where is my wife? Your wife? Shouldn't she be at your house? Why would you come here looking for her? Looking at Shin Owen's mocking eyes, Liang Henry remembered that he had Luna Yen sign the divorce agreement 3 years ago. You know who I'm talking about. Let Luna come out and see me. Owen Shin said calmly, she is here but she doesn't want to see you. Henry Liang roared, what is your relationship? Why would she leave with you? Owen Shin disdained to answer him, but he wouldn't miss a chance to be sarcastic. When it comes to relationships, I certainly can't manage them as well as Xiao Liang. He glanced at the sky filled with dark clouds. Leave early if you don't want to be swept into the sea. But Liang Henry didn't listen, maneuvering the speedboat to shore. Shin Owen's eyes darkened for a moment. President Liang, are you trying to force your way in? As soon as he finished speaking, more than a dozen speedboats and jet skis surrounded them from all directions, trapping Liang Henry. Private property, no admittance. The rain started to fall and Shin Owen turned and left. Henry Liang slammed his fist on the control panel, helpless. The yachts surrounding him maintained their formation and moved with him. In the rain, he seemed to see an umbrella moving faintly under the coconut trees, and after Owen Shin walked into it, they disappeared together. He couldn't help but shout, Luna, Luna, but was warned by the lights of the yacht ahead. It wasn't until the deep sea area in the center that the yacht team left and returned to the island. Liang Henry was lost in thought, not knowing how long he had drifted at sea. When he started the yacht again, it didn't respond at all. One after another, huge waves came from the side, the hull shook violently and seawater kept pouring in. Soaked to the bone, Liang Henry's lips were purple from the cold. He fumbled for his phone to call for help, only to find it had already been ruined by the seawater. Another wave crashed and the speedboat tilted sharply. Liang Henry slipped and slammed heavily against the gunwale. Before he could react, another wave hit and this time the speedboat completely capsized. The icy seawater instantly engulfed him. Liang Henry struggled to surface, but the heavy clothing and his dwindling strength made his movements increasingly sluggish. As consciousness began to blur, clear images emerged before his eyes. The day he first met Yen Luna, she was wearing a light blue dress, standing upstairs looking down at him. Because his mother had always been strict with him since he was a child, Liang Henry never had many friends. Yen Luna was his first friend. He remembered the days he spent with her in the library, remembered her staying up all night to take care of him when he was sick, remembered her quietly organizing his files and documents, classifying them with sticky notes, with cute smiley faces drawn on them. Each memory was like a stone dragging him deeper. He once possessed the purest love in the world but pushed it away with his own hands. Liang Henry's limbs grew heavier and heavier, and his consciousness began to fade. In the instant before his consciousness dissipated, he seemed to see Yen Luna swimming towards him, her long hair dancing in the water like seaweed, reaching out to grab him. Liang Henry used his last strength to raise his arm. Darkness descended again, and this time he willingly sank into it because at least before dying he had seen her again. However, a real force suddenly grabbed his wrist, violently pulling him upwards. In a daze, Henry Liang saw a blurry face, not Luna Yen but a completely unfamiliar face. Fush! He was pulled out of the water as if reborn. Fully awake, Liang Henry found himself in an unfamiliar room. He went downstairs and saw Zhoma in the kitchen. Zhoma also looked at him, but only pointed indifferently at the food on the table and then planned to leave. Liang Henry stopped her but didn't bother to ask her why she was here. Zhoma, have you seen Luna? Where is she? Zhoma took off her apron, her eyes filled with resentment. Leave Xiao-Yi alone, she's doing well now, but seeing you wouldn't be good for her. With that she slammed the door and left. Luna must be here, I clearly saw her. Henry Liang rushed out without putting on his shoes, searching house to house. His soles were worn and gravel dug in, but he was completely unaware. By sunset he had searched most of the island but found nothing. Dispirited, he returned to the house where he had woken up, only to find Owen Shin next door. He gradually walked closer and, through the French window, clearly saw Yen Luna sitting cross-legged on the living room carpet, playing with a border collie. The dog lay on her lap and her face held a long-lost smile. Shin Owen, standing opposite her, quickly noticed Liang Henry outside, his expression slightly changing. Yen Luna sensed something, and when she turned around, the corners of her mouth instantly froze. The dog in her arms lunged forward alertly, barking wildly through the glass. A few minutes later, Liang Henry was invited in and sat opposite Yen Luna. After a long silence, Liang Henry spoke to Shen Owen, who was sitting in the middle. "Could you excuse us? I'd like to talk to Luna alone." Before Owen could react, Luna said calmly, "No need. If you don't want to talk like this, please leave." Henry's throat moved before he finally spoke again. "Luna, I was wrong, but this is really the last time. Agreeing to have a wedding with Maisie was fake. Finding you is the real reason. You must believe me." "Henry, your promises are really cheap," Luna scoffed. "The wedding is fake, but the marriage certificate is real. My feelings for you have been exhausted by you. I've given you too many chances, and the result is always the same, isn't it?" "How is that possible?" Liang Henry stood up excitedly. "Then why did you save me? Why didn't you let me die in the sea? You clearly still care about me, don't you?" Faced with his hysteria, Yen Luna simply turned her face away. Once upon a time, she never would have imagined that she and Liang Henry would have such an undignified moment. Seeing her silence, Liang Henry thought he had hit the mark and reached out to touch her. But Shen Owen stopped him. "President Liang, I arranged the person who saved you." How is that possible?" Liang Henry stepped back in disbelief. "If you had retreated a few more nautical miles, you would have been out of my waters, and naturally I wouldn't have bothered with it. But it's just that little bit, and if you were to die here it would be unlucky, not to mention troublesome." "I did consult Luna," Shen Owen smiled, "but she just said, 'Oh,' and that was it." Looking at the indifferent Yen Luna, Liang Henry suddenly recalled that unfamiliar face. So it really was just her illusion. She really doesn't care about him at all anymore. Luna Yen stood up, making a gesture to see him off. "I don't want to see you again in the future." Of course Henry Liang wouldn't give up so easily, but he chose to respect Luna Yen and eventually boarded the boat leaving the island. Luna Yen thought the island would return to peace, but before she fell asleep, Zhoma rushed upstairs, breathless and pale. "Something's wrong. The pearl field. The pearl field has been destroyed." "What?" Luna Yan's expression changed drastically, and she rushed to the window in a few steps. From this angle you can see the aquaculture farms in the bay. At this moment, large white objects are floating on the water, all of which are torn aquaculture nets and scattered pearl oysters. Yen Luna's heart sank suddenly. Pearl farming is the main source of income for Dawn Island, and the islanders depend on it for a living. Who did this? Shen Owen, on the other side, also arrived after receiving the notification. Aunt Zhou followed behind, her voice trembling. The night watchman said he saw a speedboat approaching the shore with several figures sneaking around. And it seemed there was a woman too. The three didn't dare delay and ran towards the bay. The night was deep, but the moonlight was bright enough to illuminate the messy footprints on the beach and the damaged fence. When they reached the pearl field, several islanders were desperately trying to salvage the remaining shellfish in the water, their faces filled with despair. "Over there." Shen Owen suddenly pointed to the sea. A speedboat was pulling away, a white figure standing at its bow. Even from a distance, Yen Luna immediately recognized the silhouette as Xiao Maisie. "Yen Luna," she called out, "did you think hiding in a place like this would keep you safe? Let me tell you, as long as a Qing still thinks about you, you'll never have it easy." Yen Luna's fingertips trembled with anger. "I'm going after her." Yen Luna rushed towards the small boat moored at the shore. Owen Shen grabbed her. "Going over there now will only turn you into the same crazy woman as her. And the most important thing now is to save the pearl oysters." Luna Yan's rationality gradually returned and she bit her lip. "I'll join in too." The next few hours were like a nightmare. Everyone, even the elderly and children, were doing their best to save the pearl fields. As the sky gradually brightened, everyone finally stopped, utterly exhausted. The damage was worse than imagined. Nearly a third of the pearl oysters were destroyed and many of the remaining ones were injured, requiring careful attention to survive. Yen Luna sat on the beach, soaked to the bone, her fingers trembling as she held an injured pearl oyster. Shen Owen squatted beside her, equally disheveled. "This isn't your fault," he said softly. Luna Yen shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. She's coming for me. These islanders. They've lost so much, all because of me. No, it's clearly the fault of the villains. Shin held her cold hand. Don't worry, I'll figure something out. Luna Yen was silent for a moment, then suddenly raised her head, her eyes firm. I want to go back. Back to North City. Luna Yan's voice grew more determined. Maisie Xiao, I want to hold her accountable for what happened tonight, and put an end to all of this once and for all. Shin gazed at her and finally he nodded. I'll go with you. I don't feel comfortable with you facing those lunatics alone. Luna wanted to retort, but exhaustion and the cold rendered her speechless, and she simply nodded gently. Soon they packed their simple luggage and prepared to depart. Zhou saw them off at the dock, tears welling up in her eyes. You must be careful. She held Luna's hand tightly. That Xiao Maisie. She's more vicious than a viper. Amidst the engine noise, the speedboat slowly pulled away from the dock. In the conference room, Henry Liang was listening to the quarterly report. He flipped through the documents absent-mindedly, his eyes darting to his phone from time to time. Since Luna Yen left, he had developed this habit as if he could receive a message from her any second. But he was always disappointed. Next, the assistant's voice pulled him back to reality. However, the meeting room door was suddenly pushed open, the sound of high heels striking the floor crisp and forceful. Henry Liang raised his head, his pupils contracting sharply as he stared ahead in disbelief. Luna Yen was wearing a sharply tailored white suit, her long hair pulled back, her eyes sharp. Behind her was a row of investigators. One of them presented a certificate. We received a report that your company has some improper business transactions. We need to investigate this and hope to get your cooperation. The conference room was in an uproar. There was concern for the company and shock at Luna's appearance here. They thought it was a case of mistaken identity, unaware that she, the president's wife, was already an ex. Henry Liang stood up abruptly. How could he forget that this was Luna Yan's primary job? Luna Yen coldly interrupted the assistant who was still trying to justify himself, and turned to look at him. President Liang, the evidence has been submitted to the relevant departments. I think you need to explain more than just this, right? Her gaze was like a knife, piercing straight into his heart. Additionally, Luna pulled out a document from the folder. Regarding your current wife, Miss Xiao Maisie, there also seemed to be some inappropriate behaviors. People precisely caught those words and the conference room instantly exploded. Thinking of the destruction on the island, her voice trembled slightly. President Liang, please give me a satisfactory solution. She turned and left, the sound of her high heels fading away. Henry Liang stood there feeling like the whole world was collapsing. After a moment he still chased after her. Luna Yen stood in front of the French window, seemingly waiting for him. Do you really have to be so heartless? Our two families still have collaborations. Luna felt it was ridiculous. Heartless? Weren't you heartless when you lied to me again and again? For the past 3 years I've been played like a fool by you people. Isn't that heartless? She took a deep breath and asked, do you know what Xiao Maisie did last night? She stared at Liang Henry and he didn't deny it. So this time you're still on her side, aren't you? Liang Henry raised his head. No Luna, she's pregnant so I can't. Luna felt disappointed. Liang Henry, when did you become so unable to distinguish right from wrong? She took an envelope out of her bag. Take a look, see what the little girl you say is just a bit wild did while studying abroad. Henry Liang opened the envelope, puzzled, only to be met with a series of explicit photos. The subjects were all scenes of Maisie Xiao on dates with different men. You're just the most stable of her many sugar daddies. Henry Liang was stunned, clutching the envelope tightly, the veins in his neck bulging. Why didn't you tell me this sooner? If I had known. If you had known, what would have happened? Luna interrupted him. Xiao Maisie isn't a good person, but do you think you're any better? Even without Xiao Maisie, there would have been someone else. Luna walked straight past him. Let's handle the rest officially. Henry Liang stood frozen in place, the feeling of weightlessness from the day he fell into the sea washing over him again. But this time no one could save him. The Yen family's old house. Luna Yen sat on the sofa watching the scenery outside blurred by the rain. It had been 3 years since she married Henry Liang, and she could count on one hand the number of times she had returned to her parents' home. Just now, she had told her mother everything about her divorce and her experiences in the Liang family. That beast. Mother Yen stood up abruptly, walked to the desk and dialed the phone. Prepare the documents immediately and withdraw all our funds from the Liang group. Now. Mother Yen returned to her side, tears in her eyes. Xiaoyi, I'm sorry, Mom. After your father passed away, I was immersed in grief and neglected you. I agreed to your marriage with Liang Henry because I saw that you had a good impression of him and thought at least you would be happy. Yen Luna shook her head and held her mother's hand. It's not your fault. I was too naive to think that love could conquer all. Mother Yan's gaze shifted to Shin Owen. Is your mother doing well? Shin Owen nodded. My mother moved abroad many years ago. She is doing well and she often thinks of you. Mother Yen and Mother Shin were university classmates and used to be the best of friends, but fate played tricks on them. One lost her husband early and the other divorced and moved far away, and they lost contact ever since. Mother Yan's eyes softened. Go upstairs, the guest rooms are ready. Shall I take your friend to have a look? We'll have a good chat at dinner. Yen Luna led Shin Owen upstairs and stopped on the terrace. She touched the railing, recalling, that day I chose Liang Henry here, and from then on the gears of fate began to turn. There was no sadness in her voice, only endless emotion. Shin Owen also stood beside her, pointing to the gate outside the window. I was standing outside the door that day you mentioned, he continued, looking at Yen Luna's surprised eyes. My mother was urging me from the car behind, so I left the gift and left. This separation has lasted for 20 years. A gift. But in Yen Luna's memory, there was clearly nothing at the gate when she saw the guests off that day. Yes, it was a wind chime full of purple butterflies. Because you were wearing a purple sweater the day I met you. Yen Luna was struck by lightning. Because not long after that day, Liang Henry had also given her a wind chime. Hanging with purple butterflies. Yen Luna suddenly smiled, so his deception came so early. She was about to explain to Shin Owen when a commotion suddenly came from downstairs. They looked down from the banister to see the butler hurrying towards the door, outside of which stood a drenched Henry Liang. Mother Yen looked up at the two of them and said, You two go back to your rooms and don't come down. Henry Liang's voice cut through the rain. Mom. Please give me 5 minutes. Luna. I know you're in there. Mother Yen sneered and walked to the porch. How dare you call me Mom for 3 years? Kneel. Mother Yen said coldly. Liang Henry knelt down on both knees without hesitation. I ask you, you had another woman outside long ago, is that right? For her you plotted to divorce my daughter 3 years ago, is that right? To have a child, you forced her to kowtow with each step up the mountain to seek medicine, didn't you? Liang Henry lowered his head, not daring to deny it. Mother Yen was silent for a moment, then suddenly said sternly, 3 years ago when your family's capital chain broke, who injected capital to save you? Liang Henry was stunned. It was you. No. Mother Yan's voice exploded like thunder. She's my daughter. I only offered my help because you said you would treat her well. But what about you? How did you treat her? Yen Luna looked at her mother in shock. She had always thought that the investment was a condition for the marriage between the two families, but she never expected. Liang Henry's face turned pale. I was wrong. Since you know you were wrong, Mother Yen continued, then promise me 2 things. First, return the money with interest. Second. She paused, her gaze sharp as a knife. The suffering my daughter endured to help you conceive, now, I want you to kneel and pray for her peace and well-being for the rest of her life. Henry Liang's head hit the ground heavily. I promise you. The rain grew heavier, but Henry Liang remained kneeling in the center of the courtyard, like a statue of repentance. Luna Yen glanced at him one last time and gently closed the curtains. 3 years ago, Yen Luna walked past this window in her wedding dress, happily believing that a blissful life awaited her. Looking back now, that marriage felt like a grand dream, in which she loved with humility, suffered to the bone, and when she finally woke up, all that was left was a pile of broken memories. She looked at Shin Owen, who was chatting happily with her mother, and sighed that fate had played a joke on her. But soon, a relieved smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. Now that she's come full circle, she's going to set things right and start over. This time she will live wholeheartedly for herself. Unknowingly, she had already stayed in the old house for a week. Worried about the pearl fields on the island, Yenluna and Shin-Owen decided to go back and take a look first. The brief days spent together filled the years-long void between her and her mother. After her father's death, her mother was immersed in grief, while she was eager to find new emotional support, plunging headlong into her marriage with Liang Henry. Looking back now, they were both healing in the wrong ways. "Mom, we're planning to go back to Morningstar Island today," Yenluna said softly. "The pearl fields need to be rebuilt and the islanders." "No need to explain," her mother interrupted, a light of understanding in her eyes. "If you want to go back, then go. As long as you're happy, Mom will support you." At breakfast, the company's CFO called to report that Liang's group's payments had all been settled and all termination procedures for the cooperation had been completed. Yenluna listened quietly, surprised by the calmness within her. The name that once caused her unbearable pain now sounded like any other unreliable business partner. "It's all settled." Her mother hung up the phone, looking at her meaningfully. "This time it's completely over. Come back early." These were her mother's last words, accompanied by a tight hug. The car slowly drove out of the Yen family's gate. Yenluna looked through the car window at the gradually receding mansion, feeling no reluctance, only a strange sense of relief. As the car passed the central square, it encountered a red light. The giant screen on the square was broadcasting the morning news, and the female anchor's articulate voice floated into the car window. "Liang Henry, the head of Liang Group, has recently been behaving erratically. Following the investigation of the company, last night citizens photographed him going up the mountain alone, prostrating with each step, muttering to himself, suspected of having mental problems. It's worrying." Yenluna looked up and Liang Henry's disheveled figure appeared on the screen. He was wearing a crumpled shirt, stumbling and kneeling on the dim mountain road. That was the atonement her mother demanded. It was not long ago that his videos were playing here. At that time he was well-dressed, his brows filled with longing for the future business landscape. Yenluna suddenly felt a pang of suffocation. She had once crawled up the entire mountain step by step in the same way, praying for a child, her knees bleeding and her palms cut by the stone steps. Shin-Owen silently took her hand. Yenluna didn't pull away, letting the warmth pass from the touching skin. The car drove through bustling neighborhoods, crossed the sea bridge, and the outline of the pier gradually became clear. Yenluna's heartbeat also gradually accelerated. There was a boat to Dawn Island, Zhoma and the islanders waiting for her, pearl fields that needed to be rebuilt, and her new life. "Homesick?" Owen-shin asked with a smile. Luna Yen nodded, looking out at the shimmering sea in the distance. "Yes, I can't wait to eat the food made by Zhoma." She didn't think about the haggard figure on the screen, nor did she wonder if the name he was murmuring was hers. "Some roads you have to walk alone. Some debts you have to repay yourself. And she needs to look forward. Spring mountains, evening snow, destined to be an ill-timed encounter." 2 years later. Yenluna walked briskly, phone pressed to her ear, the other hand quickly flipping through the final draft of the bidding proposal that her secretary had just delivered. "When are we going back to the island to take a look?" On the other end of the phone, Shin-Owen's voice was filled with laughter. Yenluna's lips curved upward involuntarily. "In a few more days. I've been swamped lately." She glanced at the postcard her mother had sent from her travels on her desk. "Ever since your mom and my mom went on a round-the-world trip together and left the company to us, I haven't had a good night's sleep. Is President Yen complaining?" Shin-Owen's teasing was laced with affection. "I remember someone was just named Young Entrepreneur of the Year last month." "That's only because you're not too bad either." Yenluna closed the file, their eyes met in the air and they hung up the phone at the same time. The two teams stood facing each other. Yenluna said seriously, "I won't lose to you again in this bid." Owen-shin smiled. "I won't be holding back this time either." The two teams squeezed into the same elevator, the atmosphere subtle and harmonious. 3 hours later, when the host announced Yen Corporation's victory, Luna Yen subconsciously looked at Owen-shin. He showed no sign of disappointment, but was the first to stand up and applaud, the pride in his eyes brighter than anyone else present. Afterwards, Owen-shin booked the top floor bar of the club, and the two teams quickly mingled. However, the crisp sound of shattering glass interrupted them. The door to the next room wasn't closed tightly and a woman's hysterical cry came through. "Director Wang, please reconsider. The Liang Corporation is only temporarily in trouble. Aching will definitely make a comeback." Maisie Zhao's makeup was smeared, and she was desperately pleading, grabbing the arm of a middle-aged man. On the high chair next to her, a boy of about 2 years old was squirming restlessly. 5 or 6 empty bottles of strong liquor were on the table. "Miss Zhao, forgive my bluntness." That Director Wang coldly retracted his hand. "Even a miracle worker couldn't help you." Yan Luna didn't continue watching, but unexpectedly bumped into Xiao Maisie as she was leaving. Xiao Maisie raised her tearful eyes. "You're just lucky with your family backing you and men falling over themselves for you. If it wasn't for that car accident, I would be very happy too. Your brother left you so much you could clearly rely on yourself," Yan Luna said calmly, "but you chose to depend on a man handing over all your chips. As for Liang Henry, you and I are both losers." She beckoned a waiter, tipped him to call a cab and see Xiao Maisie and the child safely home. Before leaving, she took one last look at the boy. There wasn't a trace of Liang Henry in his features. A week later, on the white sands of Dawn Island, Yan Luna and Shen Owen lay side by side, gazing up at the starry sky. The waves gently lapped at the shore and in the distance lay the rebuilt pearl fields. Yan Luna raised her hand, gesturing for Shen Owen to look at a star, a new ring sparkling on her fingertip. Shen Owen took her hand in his. "Thank you for accepting my proposal." Luna Yen smiled and squeezed his hand back. "I was thinking, how about we have our wedding here? Right on this beach with Aunt Zhou as the officiant and everyone invited to attend." Owen Shen's eyes were brighter than the stars. "And we have to invite my mom and your mom back, they'll be so happy. Then we'll go on our honeymoon and leave the company to them to manage," Luna Yen added mischievously. Owen Shen laughed and held her even tighter. The night breeze gently blows, bringing the scent of the ocean and the rustling of distant coconut groves. At this moment the stars are shining brightly, my love is by my side, and the future is like the boundless sea before us, full of infinite possibilities. Shen Owen suddenly looked at Yan Luna. "Have I ever told you that you are the owner of Dawn Island?" "Huh?" Yan Luna's gasp was lost in the kiss, her fingers tangling in his hair, deepening the embrace. End of story.